Nevertheless, the main of the potent rank. Well, the truce in Ukraine has ended and terrible shellings of Ukraine followed. Almost all regional centers are affected here, those you know and those you do not know as well. Uzhhorod, for example, was shelled for the first time in the entire time of the war. Uzhhorod is the most extreme regional center which directly borders foreign, so to speak, colleagues, foreign regions. And now it is also being shelled. That is, the long-range capability of both Russian forces and Ukrainian forces is increasing gradually. The shelling locations are all becoming larger in scale and more extensive, but in general, that is what we are talking about right now, of course. But first I will show you another front, the domestic political front, remember? Well, this Yulia Melnik, this is Zelensky's ex-press secretary, who suddenly came out with a story about all those horrors that she saw and that she felt too. And about Zelensky himself, there is just a whole wagon and a small cart of compromising material. Immediately, absolutely all those in power started throwing mud at her, and one of them is a petty deputy with the telling last name Sinyutka. Sinyutka is sitting in a car that costs as much as a great many of his deputy salaries. In my opinion, they amount to either 52,000 hryvnias there or somewhere around that. And with a complicated face, he discusses what Yulia Mendel is like as a person.
She's already listed in the Myrotvorets database.
Myrotvorets is a resource that violates absolutely all the foundations of human rights. In particular, the right to preservation of personal information, to privacy. People who, in the opinion of anyone involved in the work of this Myrotvorets, pose a threat to the dangerous safety rather of Ukraine are posted there. Both bloggers and who knows who else have been stuffed in there, and Yulia Mendel was also stuffed in there. Moreover, right there on the very first page there is a swear word on this Myrotvorets which may speak to how developed the personalities were who created this resource. And Europe is completely fine with this, that is, it is peculiar. You know, there is this, I think, Japanese anime where the god of death provides a death note there, as it is called, a death notebook, where you write in a last name and the person dies. Well, this is approximately the same thing, only in real life. And this is in a super democratic country where Ukraine is right in a smartphone, where the rights of everyone are respected except for Ukrainians, naturally. Well, anyway, all right.
What else could it be?
Well, you look at this. Do they evoke feelings in you? Who elected this person? Raise your hands in the comments. Here is a deputy of the Verkhovna Rada who has already been sitting in this Verkhovna Rada for 7 years. This is that very Sinyutka. And, well, I don't know. I wouldn't trust a person with that kind of facial expression with 5 kopecks. Or, if you please, 5 euro cents. Or anything else. I wouldn't buy water from him in the middle of an ocean of fresh water because he arouses suspicion. Someone elected him. Well, who elected him? Who are you people? Who are you?
I don't know. He simply supports a hostile country, Ukraine the aggressor.
How does she support Ukraine the aggressor? She said directly in an interview that she considers the attack on Ukraine a crime against humanity. How does she do all this? Well, in general.
Well, let's be honest. Who is she anyway?
Let's speak honestly. The deputy says, let's speak honestly. This is some kind of nonsense. A deputy speaking honestly. Sinyutka is just on fire.
They won't decide on something like that. Yeah, corruption, yes, that's a problem. And something needs to be done here.
Sitting once again is a deputy with a complicated face, once again in a car that many times exceeds his salary, with a personal driver, I bet, and talking about how corruption must be fought. Well, naturally, cats against sour cream, bees against honey, deputies against corruption, that is logical. And all of them, these people, are giving Yulia Mendel a hard time.
And what's this?
And what is this? And this, well, let's hope, is the beginning of the end. Of all these various Sinyutkas there, Vishababas and all the others there. I remembered those with interesting last names. All right. Then what about Yermak again, who is part of Zelensky's inner circle? And it is unknown there who revolves around whom more, Zelensky around Yermak or Yermak around Zelensky. In short, there is a scandal here because an egg was thrown at this very Yermak. A regular egg. Boiled? I don't know. Or most likely raw? And here is like, well, a real scandal. Let's look at what is happening. So, not a very accurate guy, of course, turned out. Throwing an egg accurately doesn't take much. But apparently he is nervous. That is, here I am without any complaints. Naturally, I might have thrown it in completely the wrong direction, or maybe I would have crushed it in my hand due to nervousness. Later, it turned out that this guy who wanted to throw at Yermak in the sense wanted to hit Yermak with an egg, is a veteran who repeatedly participated in various operations there. In the end, he was detained, asked, "Why did you throw an egg at Yermak?" And he said, "Because he is a bad person." Well, let's say a bad person. But there, naturally, it is colored by rich folk humor and words. His speech was right on camera. Therefore, I recommend watching it if you find it. By the way, all of this is in my Telegram channel. Right here, you point the camera of your phone or smartphone, tablet at this QR code, and you get straight into the channel. Or if you are watching me from a mobile device, then follow the link in the description of this video. Right here at the very bottom. Highly recommend. There is a lot of stuff there. Okay, let's move on. In addition to such things, Ukraine is being attacked. The war continues. The truce, as I said at the beginning, has unfortunately ended. I, to be honest, hoped somewhere deep down in my soul, very deep down, it is clear that nothing would have happened. But you always want to. A human is a creature with abstract thinking. A person can imagine, predict some situation, and even if it does not come true, it still exists somewhere in their thinking. Here in my thinking somewhere there is peace between the Russian Federation, Ukraine, where there is no war, and Ukraine is that previous one and not this one that is now. And in this one, unfortunately, the previous Ukraine is gone. And Russians are attacking Ukraine with both ballistics and Shahed, and a MiG-31K took off. There is everything you can imagine there. On the night, we are told here, of May 14th, Russians launched ballistic missiles at Ukraine and also scrambled this very carrier of the Kinjal hypersonic aeroballistic missile. In parallel, they attacked Ukraine with Shaheds, and there are many regions, and Kiev is here, and many other regions are under attack. Then explosions in Kremenchuk. The chairman of the Poltava Regional Military Administration says that the region is under attack. It is reported that, where else? Over Poltava, Dnipropetrovsk, Sumy regions, there are about 80 enemy drones in the sky over Ukraine. And after 1 in the morning, the military recorded the movement of high-speed targets through the Poltava region in the direction of the Cherkasy or Kiev region. Well, in short, there is just a lot of stuff here. The consequences of these large-scale strikes are indeed severe. The latest data confirms widespread destruction of residential infrastructure and significant civilian casualties across multiple regions. Massive airstrikes on May 14th targeted critical infrastructure and residential areas across almost all of Ukraine, including Rivne, Lutsk, Kovel, Zakarpattia, Khmelnytsky, Ivano-Frankivsk, and the regions of Zhytomyr, Vinnytsia, Odessa, Kyiv, Kherson, Cherkasy, and Lviv. With the subsequent loss of human life, unfortunately, people continue to die. While those very powerful leaders continue to talk about how bad these or those are, ordinary people continue to die. But there is still a little hope that the war will stop. I have already talked about how Putin stated his vision of the war, which is supposed to suddenly end soon. And then he stated the opposite, that first, or rather not him, Peskov stated. Well, here, basically, one is for the other. It is like the mouth of Sauron was in The Lord of the Rings, so here it is about the same. He stated that Ukraine must first leave Donbass, leave those regions that were suddenly added earlier to the constitution of Russia, that is the Zaporizhia, I think, and Kherson regions, and something else, and only after that maybe the peace process will begin. But here they tell us that Russia's allies seemingly want to stop the war, otherwise they are already starting to lose trust. Here I do not know how true this is, because some historians who specialize in the history of Russia believe that Putin himself gave hints of this, of the peace process. But in general, historians, of course, history itself is a never-ending story, any side there. It is like, I think in ancient Egypt they fought. With whom did they fight? With the Hittites. With the Hittites, yes. And there was some battle, I do not remember where or when. In general, they kept beating each other there and then agreed on peace. And then each wrote about the other, meaning each on their own walls, bas reliefs on papyri wrote that here we won. We are such heroes, super, we won. They fled from there without looking back. We killed 7 of them in one fell swoop there. Especially the pharaohs were famous for shooting 3 arrows at once from a bow there. Well, and now approximately the same thing is happening. So that is how it is. And on top of all that, suddenly here into Ukraine, which is mired in corruption, mired in a war where every day, well, thousands of people are dying. Suddenly, here again, they want to return people there. And here that very Dmytro Lubinets, who is the human rights ombudsman authorized by the Verkhovna Rada, says that he is dissatisfied with the fact that it is easier for the state to talk about attracting foreigners than to work systematically to make Ukrainians want to return home. Well, I would like to ask Dmytro, how he thinks a person who has settled abroad with a normal job, with normal conditions, without any of those drones over their heads, without this very minute of memory, minute of silence, without all these talks about the language, this weapon, and a small group of people imposing their opinion on a large group of people, that is why and for what reason should they return, especially if they have nothing left in Ukraine? For what? In order to be called a resource? In order to hear and we will strip you of your voting rights? No one really needs it anymore in principle because it is clear that voting makes no sense. By the way, I voted once right after getting my passport in order to go to that very polling station and eat. There were such very tasty culinary things there. I can't recall what they served, but it was tasty. Why? Who? Why would anyone come back to this country just to look at the happy faces of those who are building these little houses with public money? Or what? Or to watch people being killed? Or to see them being thrown into those unbreakable vans and then beaten, their arms and legs broken, beaten into a coma? Well, anyway, all sorts of things happen. Why would they want to come back? I don't understand. All this talk about coming back is just crazy. And she says that the government still doesn't have a comprehensive state policy, and people who lost their homes because of the war still have to prove their right to support. The government has divided its citizens. Well, they were divided back in, 2014 when people started shouting at each other, you're a separatist, you're pro-Russian, you're this, you're that. Since then, and it's been since that very time when Poroshenko introduced into the constitution of Ukraine the intention to bring Ukraine into NATO, which for Ukraine is like a cow needs a saddle, basically all that. And they started dividing into whether you are a patriot or you are not a patriot. This is in that language, and you go to that church and you walk with that flag. And only now has this clown ombudsman finally realized it. In the year 2026. But if our politicians are so far-sighted, then what can we even say about bringing people back to a country they once loved, let alone to the state itself? Well, and of course, who will we finish with? We'll finish with these powerful leaders. Suddenly, Alina Mercedes appeared here and started talking. Look, this girl here, the one with the bob haircut, keratin straightening, plastic surgeries and all that, is considered a doctor who helps wounded, bleeding soldiers on the front line. Does she look, like a fighter to you? Well, does she look like a fighter, or does she look like a medic, even if it's a volunteer position or something like that? So how is it this woman with 2 Mercedes cars, let's say, well, what indicates that she spent even a single day at the front? She doesn't have a tan. Well, in short, I've already talked many times about the signs of people who spend time outdoors. Even if you take someone who does hard agricultural work, and especially those at the front, there's digging trenches, crawling through ditches, and all sorts of things like that. And this girl is telling how she helps people.
And she is heading to Donetsk region again.
This miracle is heading to Donetsk region. Where exactly it's going, to which restaurant, it's absolutely impossible to understand.
And I have motivation and strength.
Well, I need to buy another Mercedes. I only have 2. Come on, people. Are you really asking Alina Mercedes about motivation? I need to buy a 3rd Mercedes, even more so. Mustafa Nagem's brother has a Mercedes for 170,000, and mine is some cheap one for 60,000. Seriously? I need to keep volunteering also so that, the fortification structures like those houses like Mindich's probably keeps her up at night too. And of course, a vehicle for wounded soldiers. Well, I think a Mercedes for about 200,000 would be fine so that everyone is comfortable, the air conditioning works well and the windows go up.
You always want.
Well, of course, the fallout.
Батальйону в Києві-Вінчі, честю і гідністю, під нашим прапором в Києві-Вінчі, під іменем Дмитра Двінчі Коцюбаєва виборюється незалежність.
Oh, it seems like it's another battalion linked to Kotsiubailo. His sister leads it, and these are some other Da Vinci. In general, there are quite a few Da Vincis these days. And there's also, we have a Deputy Porybiski, who is slyly peeking out of a window. It's not clear from where, obviously it's a trench, of course, and his hairstyle looks like he just came back from the front. And by the way, the young Lenin on the left, I was surprised he changed his hairstyle, put on glasses. Maybe he watched the channel and decided not to be young Lenin anymore, but now he doesn't look like him. Well, I mean, not really. I mean, if you compare him to Lenin in those frescoes where he's in the hut or in Shushenskoye or wherever he was, or in Finland, I don't even remember, they gave him a hairstyle like that. Put on glasses with some kind of pinkish tint at the bottom. Maybe then he would look like him. But anyway, let's listen to the young Lenin and this Pogrebisky guy.
Wait a moment, we're fine. Oh, I'm still coming from outside.
A natural-born orator, really well, so now I'll tell you, yeah.
Ah, to young people.
Young Lenin is sleeping, look. He probably put on his glasses so no one would notice. That's interesting. How is that possible? A telethon received billions of hryvnias, yet a journalist is just sitting and sleeping. Well, that's wild. By the way, I didn't notice it the first time I watched the video. I was looking at that guy with the bangs, and suddenly our young Lenin is falling asleep. That's it.
They were walking, huh?
Look, he's sleeping. He's really sleeping. His eyes are closed. Just look at that. I'll also post this clip separately on my Telegram channel and probably as a YouTube short. He's sleeping right in front of the couple thousand people who are watching the telethon.
Leaving Ukraine. That's still unclear.
He woke up like, yeah.
It's clearly understood by the servicemen.
He fell asleep again.
Because some serve in the army for 4 years or more, don't see their families, lose their health, while others are simply allowed to leave the territory of Ukraine.
Well, again, here this same Pogrebisky is talking about how the military are dissatisfied with something. The military, well, at least most of my acquaintances who have served or are serving, they don't mind at all that some people are leaving. Well, except for the deputies, of course. Those young people who are leaving aged 18 to 22 are actually welcomed by most of the military. Thank God. People will keep a sound mind, good health, and everything else. What they're dissatisfied with is that the war continues. The deputy is so detached from the hopes and thoughts of ordinary people that it's astonishing how much these people have changed in just a few years and become somehow, well, just like Signor Tomato was in Cipollino, then there was Lemon, that general or whoever he was who imposed taxes on rain or told people to breathe less or something like that. That's pretty much what's happening in Ukraine right now. And then Lubinets says, why aren't people returning to Ukraine? Why do we need migrants? Well, that's why. That's why, uncle, that's why. Well, that's all. Once again, I recommend subscribing to this channel so you can watch it. To the Telegram channel as well, here it is again. It's in the description. It's everywhere. Whoever's subscribed is awesome. Bye, everyone.
Is this her political work? Was she recruited? What's going on? How do you make sense of it?
She turned into the local madwoman a long time ago, but she had some kind of connection to the authorities. And then, since she was nobody and remained nobody, she lost all of that. And she wants to attract attention. She wants people to talk about her. And she lost control. Apparently her psyche couldn't handle it. And she got carried away with all these Russian narratives. She's posted for a long time on Twitter saying we should surrender, Ukraine's a dictatorship, and not fight the Russians. Honestly, if she'd contacted someone influential, it could have caused more issues. Luckily, she's not invited to those events since everyone sees she's lost her mind. The only surprising thing is that Pasha Kukta still lives with her.
He, by the way, was at the Vienna one, but he was not there with us.